There's only 3 weeks in the United Football League regular season, and it's time to find out who's headed to the playoffs or who's headed to Cancun. Stay tuned for UFL Week 8 game breakdowns and best bets. Welcome, football fans, far and wide, to another edition of IDP Plus Bets. What is up, folks? I am your host here, the Degen Doc, and we are in Week 8. We had a quick blink, and boom, we're already at Week 8. Only 3 weeks left of the UFL regular season. We have made it. Rocky off season. Didn't know if we were going to actually make it through the league, but UFL just announced they were selling 2026 season tickets already. I think it's a bit presumptuous based on the attendance numbers, especially from this last weekend. Very, very poor, but it was a holiday weekend. So, hey, happy Mother's Day. Hopefully, everyone had a good Mother's Day and we got to watch some football. And yeah, this is UFL Week 8 game breakdowns and best bets. As always, we're going to go game by game, break down everything you need to know, and then give out the bets. But before we do that, we'll do a nice little week recap of Week 7. Not only of the UFL Week 7, but we will also do a nice recap of how we did on the bets here. Obviously, always a fan of transparency and accountability. And then we'll go ahead and do power rankings. We'll look at the standings real quick, and then we'll go through some big major injury news and just kind of news, cuts, releases, stuff like that, transactional things. And then we'll get into the game breakdown. So, look, without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into this recap here. And I think the easiest way to go ahead and do that is just let's talk about the week. This Week 7 was a wild week here. We had 3 really, really good games that came down to the wire, and then a bit of a stinker on that last game, which it seems like the last game of the slate seems to, perpetually be kind of the worst game. So if you are going to have to miss one, maybe just pencil it in for that last game in the slate that you can go ahead and miss there. But hey, DC took down the Brahmas as expected. Michigan and Arlington came back to a thriller. Bryce Perkins hurdling a dude with 1 second left, them scoring with the second, then getting the game-winning 1-point conversion. Tua Tawa scoring both the touchdown and the 1-point conversion there. Houston, oh my goodness, I'll get to this, but one of the worst blown leads covers I've seen in a long time. Disgusting beat. And then St. Louis really handling Memphis and kind of a boring one there. But this is how it stands. We'll look at the quick standings here. Really, this was the week of separation. All right. So now, obviously, this doesn't break it down, but there are 2 conferences. The way the playoffs work, for everybody who's not aware, you have your XFL conference, which is DC, St. Louis, Arlington, and San Antonio. And you have your USFL conference, which is Birmingham, Michigan, Houston, and Memphis. Top 2 teams from each conference go to the playoffs. So you've got 2 teams sitting at 5-2 in each conference. You got DC and St. Louis in the XFL, Birmingham, Michigan in the USFL. And then you got 2 teams, 2 games back in Arlington and Houston. And then you got your bottom feeders, San Antonio and Memphis, who've already been eliminated. So, those 5-2 teams really help separate themselves. Essentially, they would have to lose out, and the other Arlington and Houston would have to essentially win out, or they'd have to be some type of tiebreaker situation. Unlikely, so it's very likely we're going to see these top 4 teams in the playoffs in some sort of fashion. We're just kind of fighting for seeding a little bit, but it's still not over for Arlington and Houston. But it's getting dangerously close. All right, let's talk about our week in betting there. Look, another week where, man, we started off real nice. So this is, as always, it's going to go to do a quick recap. On my X here at the Degen Doc, I go through every play I gave out. I go through the plays we did on YouTube, of course, the plays I give out here, and then my player prop plays, which, as a reminder, obviously the YouTube plays are going right now. They drop every Wednesday. That is the sides and the totals. Anything I like in that regard. And then the player props comes out on Friday. It comes out via my X at the Degen Doc, because lines don't drop until then. And I don't blame them, because depth charts don't drop, and this league is absolutely crazy, which is why we're kind of hitting a roller coaster here. But look, the weekend started off really nice with, going 1-0 on the best bet for DC. Then Michigan, -1 did push, but I was able to, I did bet it at plus 525 live. I tweeted out, hey, small play on the 1 unit play on the money line there. So hopefully you join that with me because that was a nice cash, even though we pushed the spread to start the game. But it was the classic Arlington. You cannot trust them with the lead. Bryce Perkins is absolutely one of the most clutch players in the UFL. So that was being able to ride that high. So we were riding really good. Player props were doing well coming into Sunday. And Sunday, all the way up until about maybe the last quarter of the game was feeling amazing, right? Of that first game, that Houston Birmingham game. I mean, Houston was up 25-6 at one point, 25-6. Not only did they wind up losing the game, but they lost the cover of 6.5. I mean, we had them catch at 6.5 points. It was our second best bet. I had them on the money line as the DGen play. It was very Houston, man, they looked so good. I felt like a genius. And then just watching them absolutely collapse. They got nothing going. They scored 0 points in the second half. They had really little to no offense and less than 100 yards. And the worst part is they give up what wound up being the game-winning touchdown to Jamar Smith, a guy who was retired 4 days ago. And they fumbled the ensuing kickoff. And then all of a sudden, they also, there was a 15-yard penalty that I guess they can assess from the point after on the following play after the kickoff, which is another weird UFL rule. And they winded up with it on the 2, and Birmingham scores to cover and win by 8. I mean, just absolutely a disgusting beat. Scott Van Pelt should be airing that because that was very gross. So we can kind of turn at that point. Houston really, really let me down. And it was just kind of a crap weekend to finish out. So, minus 5.81 units on the week, all plays total, brings us to plus 3, a little over 3 units on the year. So up and down, we were starting off real high, up 20 units the first 2 weeks, and we were down and up, and then up last week, and now we're up a little bit, but it is that roller coaster, right? The UFL is a crazy ride. So hopefully you're at least having some fun. And let's go ahead and finish these last 3 weeks strong there. So with that, let's turn the page. We're going to UFL week 8. And we are going to do this. Best way I like to do this is go ahead and bring up the power rankings here as we head into week 8. These are my power rankings for all the UFL teams. Of course, I'm going to keep my shtick going for Michigan, ranking them with Bryce Perkins and without Bryce Perkins, because Danny Etling still cannot believe we had to endure him for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever the hell it was. Michael, what are you doing, man? But for those of you who were watching last week, you probably noticed my power rankings actually didn't change at all. not a single movement. I think 1 and 2, DC, Michigan, they were able to get it done in close games. They were able to get the win. I think they stayed put. St. Louis was able to get it done. Birmingham able to get it done in crazy fashion. All the teams at the top won, and all the teams at the bottom lost. Right? Nothing really significant moved. The nice thing about this is we get to see some of these matchups, particularly St. Louis, Birmingham, and Memphis, San Antonio. 2 teams that are very close, I think, as far as power rankings or how they should be looked at as a team. And that means we get hopefully some really close games this week. So pretty excited about that. But yeah, the power rankings essentially stay the same these teams are starting to define themselves, and I don't think there needs to be a change there. Let's talk big news, trades and injuries here. Any type of transactional things. We'll talk about this. Record this on Tuesday night, as always. Usually, I have an injury report for Tuesday by now because I record it pretty late. But it's pretty late here, and there's still no injury report for Tuesday. It's just the Monday injury report, which is only going to give us that first game, that Friday matchup between Memphis and San Antonio. So just heads up from injury side. But some of the things you already know, Memphis running back Wes Hills was knocked out of the game with a calf strain. Unlikely he's going to be able to suit up this week. Then the Stallions quarterback carousel, I think, is one of the biggest most noteworthy things that I want to go ahead and talk about here. And, the reason for that is Alex Mago looks like he's going to be back. The QB1 to start the season, who got knocked out. I mean, Birmingham, this was their fifth quarterback they played in Jamar Smith this season, which is absolutely absurd considering they're 5-2. But they've got Case Cookus, who's a little banged up, but he's been starting the last 2 weeks, looking a little bit better. They've got Jamar Smith, who just came off retirement and led them to the game-winning drive and then the game-covering drive, which that one was very brutal for all of us Houston backers. And then they've got Alex Mago come back from the shoulder injury. So they've really got kind of some decisions to figure out who's going to be the quarterback. Are they going to split time? So that's probably the biggest news headline as far as what we're looking at this week. Other, unfortunate news, Michigan star linebacker Frank Ginda is going to be out for the season with a pec injury. Michigan has now lost both the 2023 USFL Defensive Player of the Year and the 2024 UFL Defensive Player of the Year in Breland Speaks. Two major pieces of that defense are now out. Michigan actually down both their starting linebackers on IR right now. So a bit of a blow to the Michigan, defense. They do get back running back Matt Colburn. It looks like he's going to be active this week after coming off IR. Birmingham defensive end Ronnie Perkins is on the IR. He's done for the season. He's an impact player, an edge rusher who is really, doing well for them. Although they do seem to have like a solid rotation of dudes. They just kind of can get pressure. Ronnie Perkins was probably their best pass rusher, and he's going to be out for the season. And then DC starting safety Monte Nicholson is going to be back from the IR. DC's been very beat up, especially in the secondary position. They've been having to rotate guys. Their corners are pretty good, but the safeties begin up a lot of big plays there. So hopefully Nicholson adds some stability there. So those are your biggest kind of news, big picture. As I get through each game, we'll kind of talk more and more in depth about, how this is going to impact and things like that. But I wanted to make sure I got that to you guys. So look, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the actual game breakdowns. And it's UFL Week 8. Let's get the energy going because there's only 3 more weeks, right? 3 more weeks of the regular season. Then you got 2 playoff games of conference championship. And then you got the UFL championship, which I believe is June 14th there. So 5 more weeks of football. 5 more weeks of football, real professional football. We get to bet on, we get to enjoy, and then we're 5 weeks closer to college football in the NFL. So all good things as we wrap up and get into UFL Week 8. So let's start with the Friday night game. We've got a little bit of an interesting schedule this week. The Friday night game is going to be a staple. This is the 1-6 Memphis Showboats taking on the 1-6 San Antonio Brahmas here. Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time in nice San Antonio, Texas, in the good old Alamo Dome. Memphis catching a point. This is a pick 'em on the money line, -110 each way. Over-under sitting at 36.5. So I just talked about, hey, look, they're close in the power rankings, right? They're close in the standings. The only 1-6 teams in the league. So obviously this is probably going to be a close spread. They have not played this season. They played last year, and it was a 1-point game. San Antonio won 20-19 in Memphis last year in week 2 of the 2024 season. Let's talk injuries real quick. I do expect Wes Hills, unfortunately, to be out. Calf strains are tough to come back from 1 week. They got a high re-injury risk. It's very unlikely he suits up. And then at San Antonio, they're likely going to be out. They're definitely going to be out. Free Steve Bo Peep Keys, he got cut due to his injury. Greg Ward and Anthony McFarland are not practicing. The Brahmas just signed James Sheridan, running back from the Michigan Panthers, who they cut. It's probably expecting McFarland to be out. They got Joshua Corbin, Aiden Robbins have been doing decently okay there. But, obviously San Antonio, McFarland, probably their most explosive player. He's going to be out. And then Wes Hills really invigorated a Memphis rush offense that was worst in the league. And now they go right back to being bottom of the barrel in that aspect. So, how do I see this game playing out? I am actually going to go with give me the home team here. Give me the San Antonio Brahmas. They are laying 1 at -105 there. That number, that's over on Bet365 is where I'm getting that number there. I think these are 2 very similar teams, right? They both went to their quarterback number 3, and their offenses have looked more competent. Kevin Hogan has stepped in the past 2 weeks for San Antonio and kind of built them, gave them a little bit of stability in the quarterback position. I think the big difference here, why I'm going to ultimately go with San Antonio over Memphis, is the fact that the turnover margin. There's a huge difference in turnover margin here. They're both the two worst teams in the league in turnover margin, as you'd expect, because they're both bad teams. But Memphis is -10 in the turnover margin, where San Antonio is only -3. Turnovers really have been the key thing that have really hampered Memphis. They played in some close games and had some close losses. And turnovers, typically one or two bounces that don't go their way. They struggle to get takeaways on the defensive side. So I actually like San Antonio. I think the crowd's going to be in it, and I think they're going to struggle to run the ball. They're going to Memphis is going to be one dimensional without Hills in the game, and so that's going to lead to some dresser win interceptions, maybe a sack fumble. He has fumbled from a sack 2 weeks in a row, so he's struggling to hold onto the ball there. So give me San Antonio to get up for their home fans and bring a little juice and get the win at home there. Get win number 2 on the board there. They're still a talented roster. They've got a good wide receiver room. They've got players on defense. They're just struggling to put it together there. I'm also going to go with the over in this game. Give me the over 36.5. These are two very bad defenses, the worst two defenses in the league. I know what you're saying. Yes, they're also bad offenses. Yes, I will give you that, of course. But these offenses have not been as bad as the numbers reflect since the quarterback threes have taken over. Again, Dresser win for the Memphis Showboats and Kevin Hogan for the San Antonio Brahmas. So with the, a little bit of stability from the quarterback position, although it's the third string guy, I think that they're going to be able to put up some points here. I think this is going to be a wacky, fun Friday night game. Two bad teams, some turnovers, some big plays. Again, defenses that aren't the best here. And I think there's going to be opportunity not only for, some interceptions, potentially defensive touchdowns, but also just some big plays. I think both wide receiver rooms in, Memphis with Jonathan Adams, David Davis, Kyle Loxley, one of the better wide receiver rooms. And then same thing with San Antonio with Justin Smith, Marquez Stevenson, John J. Kirkland, Jacob Harris. They got some dudes who can make some plays on the outside. So I like there to be a little bit more points than people think. Give me like a 24-21 type game. I know that's a little too NFL, so maybe a 23 to 19 game, something like that. But I do like this game to go over, and ultimately I do like San Antonio in this one. All right, we're going to move on over to the next game on the slate. But before we do that, I've got to tell you about some of our awesome sponsors here at IDP Plus. And we're going to start it off with Fast Draft Fantasy. That is right, Fast Draft Fantasy. Look, folks, it's in the name. You want to start drafting faster today. 20 seconds on the clock for each pick, 6 rounds, every draft under 10 minutes. That's what you want. Come on now. No one wants to be sitting there, hey, okay, I make my pick, and then I got to wait 10 minutes just to make my other pick. I mean, no one needs a minute, 45 seconds on the clock. I know what dudes I want to get after. 20 seconds is all you need. And go ahead and start doing that. Do it over at Fast Draft Fantasy. And I'll make it even a little bit sweeter. I'm going to give you $50 free because you're going to use promo code plus Degen Doc. That is all one word, all caps, plus Degen Doc. You're going to deposit $50 and boom, you're going to get an instant $50 on us. So use that promo code today. Also, make sure you check out idpplus.com. We are talking football 365 days a year, 24/7. We've got subscriber Discord. We've got subscriber-only content. You want to be in the crowd. You want to be talking football 24/7. So go ahead, check out idpplus.com, and let's get it popping. And then the best thing about the offseason is the Fantasy Football Expo. Get your tickets today at thefantasyfootballexpo.com. All right, folks, let's go ahead and head on over to this Sunday matchup. Now, this is where the scheduling kind of gets a little interesting here. We actually have 2 games on Sunday, May the 17th at 1 p.m. Eastern time, and we have both at the same time. So I guess it's like a regional. We'll see which game you get. I don't know, man. I think this is kind of ridiculous. You got 4 games for 3 days. Why the heck are we putting 2 on the same time slot? Like I enjoy football. I mean, look, I like to multi-screen, but it's on the same channel, so I don't think that's going to be an option. There's 4 games. Why are you forcing me to only watch 3 games? I just don't get it. I'm sure there's some reasoning that has to do with money and Fox and owning the league and blah blah blah. But this is just dumb. But anyway, it is what it is. So we'll talk about this first game here, and that is probably the game of the weekend here, and that is the 5-2 Birmingham Stallions heading to the Battle Dome. the one stadium with actual true home field advantage. Yeah, I'll give DC some credit. I think Audi Field does a pretty good job, but there's nothing like the home Battle Dome there in St. Louis. We've got the 5-2 Birmingham Stallions, the back-to-back-to-back defending spring champions, taking on the 5-2 St. Louis Battlehawks. They've been a very nice story with Max Duggan taking over there. You've got Birmingham catching 2.5 points on the road there, plus 115 on the money line over on FanDuel. And then obviously, St. Louis minus 135 going the other way. Over under sitting at 39.5. These two teams have also not played this season. They played last season, and Birmingham got it done in week 7 of last year by a score of 30-26. That was in Birmingham. So now we're in St. Louis. So how does this game shake out here? Well, again, I want to kind of highlight a couple injuries things here. No Ronnie Perkins for the Stallions, but they do get back a key piece in their cornerback, Ike Brown. That secondary has been one of the worst parts of the Stallions team. So be anything they could do to solidify that. And again, should have 3 quarterbacks available, which is more than they've had by far. And they're all competent quarterbacks. We'll see who Skip Holtz is going to go with, what the rotation is going to look like. I think at this point, one of the true things you can trust with the UFLs and spring football is you can trust Skip Holtz to make the right decision. He's by far the best coach. I mean, he's won 3 championships back to back to back. So, I've got some faith here in Skip to kind of make the right decision there. For Birmingham or for the St. Louis side, really the biggest thing is still no Abdul Beecham on the O-line. He's done for the season. That is a shuffle to one. They were the best offensive line. Without him, we saw some gaps, and they're not moving the ball quite as effectively without him. So I think that is still worth noting. The way I'm going to play this one is give me the away team. I'm going to go with the Birmingham Stallions. I'm going to go with the defending champs here. I think they're starting to catch their stride at the right time here. Look, I think the biggest thing matchup-wise in this game is St. Louis is the number 1 rush offense. They're the number 8 pass defense. So they're the best in the league at running the ball, and they're the worst in the league at throwing the ball. Max Duggan, he likes to use his legs. Jacob Sailor's one of the better backs. They've got weapons and playmakers on the outside, but he's not the most accurate quarterback. I don't know if he can beat you with his arm. I think Birmingham's going to force St. Louis to be one-dimensional, and they're going to try to pass. I think it's going to lead to some turnovers, to some tricky situations with that really ferocious Stallions pass rush. So, look, St. Louis wants to run the ball, and with no Abdul Beecham and going up against the Stallions defense, I don't think they're going to be able to. And I think that's going to create massive problems. So give me Birmingham plus 2.5 at minus 110. I like them on the money line at plus 115. And I think their offense is really starting to click there. And I think they're going to be able to run on this St. Louis team. They've had some interior line injuries. Again, I don't have the injury reports just yet. We'll see if Austin Fealu is able to come back. But they were missing both nose tackle and defensive tackle. I think that Memphis was able to run on them when Wes Hills was in the game. This is a much more formidable attack in the Stallions. So I like the Stallions to be able to get some things going on the ground, and I really like their defense to kind of bottle up this St. Louis offense that has been a bit stuck in the mud ever since Manny Wilkins has gone out. I also like this under 39.5. Both these teams are led by their defense. This is the number 1 and the number 2 scoring defenses right now in the league, and they live up to the belt. Both these offenses have struggled at times, and these defenses have had to keep these teams in games, have it really kind of keep things together this season. So I think you have two teams where it's going to be a hard-fought game. It's going to be a close game. I don't see anyone really running away with this here. But ultimately, I think it's going to be points are going to be a premium. I think there's going to be a lot of field goals. There's going to be some fourth downs that are going for it and that don't get to converted. I think this is just going to be a really, really good defensive matchup, and I don't think this pops over 40. So give me the under 39.5 for this one. So I'm on Birmingham. Give me the road team and give me the under in this primetime matchup here. And then the other game at 1 p.m. Eastern time, Saturday, May 17th, and that is not that one. The Michigan Panthers, the 5-2 Michigan Panthers, heading to Houston to take on the 3-4 Houston Roughnecks. Michigan is laying 6 as road favorites, and you have Houston catching 6 plus 190 on the money line as home dogs. Over under sitting at 43. These teams did not play this season as well. They last played in week 9 of last season, where Michigan won 26-22. So a little bit of a close game in Houston last year. All right, this year, how do I see it going down? Well, I see it as Houston keeping it close. I think Houston is going to be able to hang around this game. Houston, especially ever since Jalen McClendon has taken over as starter, they're 2-1. They really should be 3-0. They really let that Birmingham game slip away. I mean, if you want to talk about a disgusting beat, really bad, game to let go, it's that Houston game. But they were in it. They are a capable team. Again, Jalen McClendon has been a really nice stabilizing force for this offense. He does not turn the ball over, and this defense has been very opportunistic. They are +5 in the turnover margin, while Michigan, they have a tendency to turn the ball over sometimes. They had a couple fumbles last week. They've given the ball up 8 times. They are -1 in the turnover margin. I think Houston's going to be able to win the turnover battle. And the biggest thing is Michigan is now down 4 starting defenders. Once Breland Speaks went out, that was a massive hit. They've had another Walter Paramore, their defensive tackle, will go out. Now, Javin White, their linebacker, and now arguably they're well, not arguably, it's their defensive leader, and he's the guy leading the tackles in UFL in Frank Ginda, one of the best players in the league. Now he's out. This is a lot for Michigan to try to replace. Don't get me wrong. Their offense is awesome. Bryce Perkins, getting Matt Colburn back, Tawatua. I think their offense is great. Perkins is awesome. I think they're probably still able to win this game, but I just think, much like last week that we saw with them in Arlington, I think this is going to be a close game. I think Michigan is going to have 1 or 2 turnovers. I think Houston's going to be able to hang around. They're going to be able to throw on this team. I think there's going to be some miscommunication as they try to deal with life after Frank Ginda there. And I think Houston's able to keep it close at home. I think this is much closer to a 2 to 4 point game here. I still would give Michigan the slight edge. I still think they are the better team, but this back-to-back road spot, and I think Houston knows they're fighting for the playoff lives. They're going to throw the kitchen sink at them. I think they keep it within the number here. So give me Houston +6. All right, let's go ahead and get to our final game on the slate here, and that is the Sunday matchup there. The 3-4 Arlington Renegades taking on the 5-2 DC Defenders. Sunday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time in beautiful Washington, D.C. Over-under sitting at 43 points there. Arlington catching 3 on the road at +130. And DC laying 3 at home, -155 on the money line for DC. These teams actually did play each other this year. They played in week 5. DC had then the largest comeback in UFL history. Arlington, like many of their games this season, I mean, it's the story of the Arlington team right now. They built a good lead. They looked like they were in absolute control, and they absolutely collapsed in the crunch time. And, DC wound up winning by 4 in that game. One, you just can't trust Arlington. I mean, they're going to look good for 3.5 quarters, and then something's going to go wrong. It's going to mess it up, right? So I think it's really hard to trust this Arlington team. I mean, Perez, Canella, and Tyler Vaughn's all balled out last game against Michigan. They threw for over 300 yards. Everything was going right for them, and they still found a way to lose that game. I think at last week's game significantly decreased the chances that Arlington's in the playoffs. I think it's a bit of a dream crusher game. I think they're going into DC a little bit of a dead man walking. They're not going to be ready. DC had a little bit of a wake-up call themselves in San Antonio. I think they come home and get refocused. They know the playoffs are right around the corner. So give me DC -3. And, I really think that DC is the one major difference in this game compared to last game. Last game, DC did 1 by 4, but Arlington was leading and kind of controlling that game. Kalen Balaj, he's been out a week and he's done for the season. Still the number 2 rusher in the UFL. He was the leading rusher before he went out. They had Balaj, and he was able to run for, I think it was 10 rushes, 79 yards, and a touchdown. He was a major contributor to that team, kept them balanced. They mightily struggled to run the ball with just Day Hunter and Davion Smith. It has been a very tough task for them to run the ball without Kalen Balaj. And I think they're going to continue to struggle here. And I think that's going to make them one dimensional. You know, Luis Perez is a good quarterback, but they just not been able to convert. Definitely in the red zone and definitely kind of in crucial downs there. They were 1-5 in the red zone last week. I think that they're going to have some issues because they can't run the ball. And I think DC, they tout the number 2 pass defense in the UFL. So, they're a bit susceptible on the ground, but Arlington really can't run the ball as effectively without Kalen Balaj. So I think that they're going to try to be forced to throw, and they're going to run into some issues with, again, the number 2 pass defense in the UFL there, and they're getting back safety Monte Nicholson to kind of shore some things up in the back end there. I think Arlington just runs out of gas here. I think DC, the last time they threw for, over 300 yards. They put up almost 400 yards of offense on this Arlington defense. I think Jordan Ta'amu in this passing attack is going to be able to get loose a little bit, and I ultimately think DC does win actually fairly handily here. I think Arlington comes in, their hearts are crushed with that loss last week, a game they should have won that didn't definitely, but likely knock them out of the playoffs. And I think DC, on the other hand, they got a little bit scared last week. They know what they got to do. They got to get tuned up, ready for the playoffs. And I think they handle business at home. And the beer snake helps kind of secure a victory for us there. Again, obviously it's the Alamo Dome up top, but DC definitely with the second best home field advantage. And those two are way above the other 6 franchises by far. So keep it up, DC and St. Louis, man. It's awesome to see you guys out there rocking. All right, let's go ahead, and that is the 4 games on the slate, on the UFL week slate. So let's go ahead and do a best bets and DGen play, and then let's get on out of here. All right, for my best bets for UFL week 8, give me Birmingham +1.5, -110 over on FanDuel. So for those that are new, all the plays I just gave out, beforehand, those are just kind of standard plays or 1 unit. My best bets are 2 units, right? So that's how I typically advise people to kind of use your bankroll as such. These are the ones I feel the best about this week. These 2, and then the DGen play is just 1 unit play. But give me Birmingham +2.5, -110. I think the champs are getting hot. I think they're getting hot at the right time. I think they've got now a slew of quarterbacks to pick from. I think their running game is going to be able to get going against St. Louis. And I think the biggest thing is they're bringing in the number 1 rush defense against a team that wants to run the ball and doesn't have a quarterback who can just sling it across the yard to Max Duggan. I think they're going to frustrate that offense. I think it's going to lead to some turnovers. And I think Birmingham is going to be able to control the game with their running ability. And, they're going to walk out of there with a victory. So give me Birmingham +2.5. Also give me Houston +6. Look, Michigan is one of the best teams in the league. They might be the best team in the league according to my power rankings. But they have a ton of injuries on defense. I think this game is going to be a little bit closer. It might be closer to a shootout. But no, Frank Ginda is massive for this defense. He's their defensive leader. I think that's going to lead to Houston having some success, whether it's through the air, on the ground. And I think they're able to keep it close there. I think Michigan's not going to be able to run with it, and Houston's going to keep it within the 6. And then finally, for the DGen play, give me Birmingham -3 at +158. I do think not only are they going to cover the 2.5, I think they're going to win this game outright. I talked about it again. Number 1 rush defense going up against a team that wants to run the ball with a misaligned offensive line that's missing arguably their best offensive lineman and Abdul Beecham. That's really the matchup, and I think their offense is starting to click. They're going to be able to have some success running the ball. So give me Birmingham to go play spoiler in the Alamo Dome, much to the dismay of all the Bad Hog fans there. All right, folks, that is it. That is UFL week slate. We broke down each game. We did our recap. We did power rankings. We talked major news, went game by game, gave out my bets, and of course, wrapped up with best bets and the DJ play there. Again, this is sides and totals. Obviously, if you've gotten to that point, you are aware. If you want player props, go ahead and find me on X at the Degen Doc. That is how I calculate year to date all the bets. Everything is tracked and everything, all that good stuff. But yes, if you want the full kit and caboodle and you want to get into the player props, mostly FanDuel and ESPN Bet have the best lines from what I found. That's what I'll be using. But find me on X at the Degen Doc, and I will be posting all of the plays I put out for you. And that way you have it. So, all right, folks, we've only got a couple weeks left here of UFL. Obviously, if you're a football junkie like me, I know you're enjoying this, especially these past couple weeks. I think the quality of football has been really, really, really good. We've had some really close matchups. We've had some like kick six, overtime, big comebacks. Like, it's been fun football. Yes, the marketing is horrible, if we're being honest. There's a lot of things this league can improve on, but it is football in a time where we have no football. So we're going to appreciate it. We're going to bet on it. We're going to make some money, and we're going to enjoy it. So if you enjoyed this show, please like, comment, let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. Let me know who you agree with, who you think is going to win. I'd love to chop it up in the comment with you guys, and then subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to IDP Plus Bets. Everything bets there. Also IDP Plus. Again, football 24/7. All right, folks. Without further ado, this is the Degen Doc signing off from IDP Plus Bets.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.